I'm Olivia Miller, 26 years old, stumbling along the gravel edge of Route 9, with my 2-year-old son clinging tightly to my chest. The roar of semi-trucks rushing past us shakes the earth beneath my feet, and a wave of terror sweeps through me. But I keep moving, step by step. Then, suddenly, the sound of screeching tires rips through the air. My father's black truck comes to a screeching halt right in front of me. He jumps out, his face ashen with anger, his eyes scanning the empty road behind me. "Olivia, where's your car?" he shouts, his voice cutting through the noise of the traffic. I lock eyes with him, feeling the weight of the truth that's been lodged in my chest for so long. "Anthony took my keys," I say, my voice barely a whisper over the din. "He says I'm medically unfit to drive." The air around us is thick with tension as my father stares at me, his face a mixture of disbelief and anger. For a moment, the noise of the highway seems to fade, and all that remains is the pounding of my heart in my ears. The silence inside his truck is deafening, starkly contrasting the chaos we just left behind. The cold blast of air from the conditioning dries the sweat on my face. But it does nothing to ease the twisting knot of dread in my stomach, Noah. The little one had fallen asleep in his car seat, his tiny body lulled by the hum of the engine. I glance at his peaceful face, and my hands begin to tremble. The adrenaline that had fueled me moments ago is now ebbing away, leaving only a crushing sense of shame. I can feel my father's gaze shift to the road ahead, his knuckles tight around the steering wheel, turning white as he grips it with all his might. "How long?" he asks, his voice low, his gaze never leaving the road. His words aren't from the perspective of a father. They feel more like a police officer interviewing a witness. 6 months, I murmur, since Noah turned 18 months old. My voice falters as I say it, a wave of guilt washing over me. He takes in a sharp breath, his fingers tightening. "Why didn't you tell me?" I turn my gaze to the window, trying to steady myself. "Because it didn't seem like abuse," I reply, the words tasting bitter as I say them. "Dad, that's the thing. It didn't start with a lock on the door or raised fists. It started with a casserole. With Susan showing up saying, 'You look so tired, Olivia. Let me take the night shift.' And I was exhausted, so I let her." My voice cracks as I continue. "Then it was Anthony telling me, 'Babe, don't worry about the bills. I'm an accountant. Let me handle the finances so you can focus on Noah.' And I was stressed. So I thanked him. As I finish speaking, the weight of everything comes crashing down, and I realize the full extent of how deeply I've allowed it all to go unnoticed. The guilt of not recognizing the warning signs earlier claws at me. But all I can do is sit there in the silence, wondering how I let it get this far. I looked out the window at the passing trees, watching the world blur. I needed him to understand the mechanics of the trap. It's the boiling frog. Dad, you know Thestry? If you drop a frog in boiling water, it jumps out. But if you put I-10 cool water and turn the heat up slowly, it cooks to death before it realizes it's dying. That was my life. The heat went up 1 degree at a time. First, Susan moved into the guest house to help. Then she was in my kitchen every morning, criticizing the nutritional value of the oatmeal I made. Then she was checking my grocery receipts, circling items she thought were wasteful. When I complained, Anthony told me I was being ungrateful. He said I had postpartum anxiety. My father's jaw tightened. "Did a doctor say that?" "Oh, Anthony did." Every time I questioned why he moved our savings in an account I couldn't access, he said I was being paranoid. Every time I asked Susan had a key to our bedroom, Hassad, I was being difficult. They made me feel like my brain was broken. Last week, I tried to drive to the park and me keys were gone. Anthony said he took them for my own safety because I've been so scattered lately. He said he was protecting me. I looked down at my hands. They were raw from gripping the carrier straps. They checked my phone, Dad, every night. Anthony said he was just making sure I wasn't doom scrolling, that it was bad for my mental health. But he was reading my text. Who was tracking my location. I stopped calling you because I didn't want you, Tori, and I didn't want them to know I was cracking. I thought if I'd just behaved better, if I was just calmer, they would give me my life back. My father pulled the truck onto thresholder of the road and put it in park. He turned to me, and the look in his eyes wasn't anger at me. It was the cold, lethal focus of a man who had hunted predators for 30 years. "That is North Bolivia," he said, his voice low and terrifyingly steady. "That is a siege. They isolated you. They disarmed you. And then they took you hostage. We're going back." Panic flared in my chest. "No, Dad, please. I can't." "We aren't going back to talk," he said, shifting the truck back into gear. "We're going back to get your things. You are leaving that house today, and you are never walking on the side of a highway again." The tires crunched on the pristine gravel driveway. My father's truck looked out of place among thyme-ported sedans and meticulously trimmed hedges. The estate was silent. A fortress of beige stucco and wrought iron. Dad killed the engine, but neither of us moved. Through the windshield, I saw them. Anthony and Susan were on the patio. Susan was laughing, holding a glass of white wine, while Anthony scrolled on his tablet. They looked like a picture from a magazine. They looked like people who hadn't just forced Amathor and Child to walk miles on a highway shoulder. "Stay here," my father said. I ignored him. I unbuckled No's car seat, my fingers fumbling with vest straps, and pulled him into my arms. It wasn't staying behind. I walked up Fedrivway behind my father, matching his stride. Susan spotted us first. Her smile didn't drop. It just froze. "Oh, look who's back," she called out, her voice bright and brittle. And she brought reinforcements. "Harold, you're just in time for a glass of Chardonnay." My father walked up the stone steps, his boots heavy on the slate. He didn't look at the wine, he looked at Anthony. "Where are her keys?" he asked. His voice was the same low rumble he used on suspects, the one that made people stop breathing. Anthony stood up, smoothing his polo shirt. "Harold, let's not be dramatic. We were worried about her. She's been unstable. We took the keys for her own safety. You know how Newmans get? The casual misogyny, the practice concern." It made my blood boil. I stepped out from behind my father. "I'm not unstable, Anthony. I'm leaving." Susan laughed a short, sharp bark. "Leaving? Where are you going to go, Olivia? You don't have a job. You don't save a car. You barely have a brain cell if that isn't focused on diapers. We're protecting you. We are keeping this family together because you are clearly incapable of doing it yourself." My father stepped between us. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He just looked at Susan with a cold, flat stare. "You're in protecting her. You are holding her hostage. Give her the keys." "No." Anthony crossed his arms, trying to match my father's height, but failing miserably. "Or what, Harold? You going tourist me? It's my car. It's my house. Make the rules." "She wants to leave. She can't walk. But she's not taking my son." The air in the yard changed. The birds seemed to stop singing. My father took one step closer to Anthony. "You want to talk about rules? Fine. Let's talk a booth law. You are withholding her personal property. You are restricting your movement. And if you try to stop her from leaving with her child, that isn't lawful imprisonment." Susan scoffed. "Oh, please. She's hysterical. She needs rest." "She needs her passport," my father said, turning to me. "Go inside, get your documents. Get the baby's things. I'll handle them." I ran past Anthony, dodging his outstretched hand. I heard Susan's shouting something about trespassing, about calling the police, but my father's voice cut through it all. "Go ahead, Susan, call them. I'd love to explain the situation to my former colleagues." I raced up the stairs, my heart pounding against my ribs. The house felt different now. Cold, alien. It wasn't my home. It was a crime scene. I tore open the closet door, my hands moving with a frantic, clumsy speed. I didn't fold anything. I shoved clothes into the duffel bag. Noah's onesies, my jeans, anything I could grab. My breath huffed in my throat, a jagged rhythm off Nick. My father stood in the doorway, his back to me, watching the hall. He was a statue, a barrier between me and Thepapole, who had slowly dismantled my life. I stopped for a second, clutching Noah's favorite blanket. "Dad," he whispered. He didn't turn around. His shoulders were rigid. I saw it then 6 months ago. He said, his voice rough with a pain I hadn't expected. "The Sunday dinner when you didn't laugh fence? The way you looked at Anthony bore, you answered a simple question. I saw the light going out in your eyes, Olivia." I froze. He knew. I told myself it wasn't my place. He continued, his voice cracking. "I told myself marriage is hard, that I shouldn't interfere, that I was helping by giving you space. I thought I was respecting your boundaries, but I wasn't. I was leaving you behind enemy lines without a weapon. I'm so sorry." The guilt in his voice was Shivi, a physical thing. It was the silent regret of the watchman who fell asleep while the castle was breached. I walked over and put a hand on his arm. "You're here now," I said. "But Dad, you need to know something." I didn't stay back as I was weak. He turned to look at me, his eyes searching mine. I stayed back. I was terrified that if I left without a plan, they would take Noah. I pulled a hidden folder from under the mattress. The one place Susan never checked because she was too busy inspecting the dust on the baseboards. I opened it. Inside were photos of unspanked statements I'd snapped when he left this laptop open. Screenshots of texts between him and Susan discussing how Tom managed me. It's cool. I wasn't just surviving. "Dad," I said, my voice steadying. Was gathering ammunition. "It's the invisible chain of the survivor. You don't yank against the chain because it just chokes you harder. You wait. You pick the lock while they're sleeping." I was waiting for the moment I could leave with no hand, never have to look back. Today, waste that moment. My father looked at Theffelder, then at me. He didn't see a victim anymore. Saw his daughter. "Let's go," he said. We walked out off the bedroom. Anthony was at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at us with a mix of fury and disbelief. Susan was behind him, her phone in her hand. "Keat, take him," she shrieked, pointing "Get Noah in my arms. Keat, that is kidnapping. I have the police on the line right now." My father didn't even slow down. He descended the stairs step by heavy step, forcing Anthony to back up. "It is not kidnapping for a mother to travel with her child, Susan," my father said. His voice, projecting with the authority of a man who knew every statute by heart, but preventing a person from leaving a premises. "That is unlawful restraint. And if you lie to a 911 dispatcher about a custody dispute to incite a police response, it's filing a false report. Do you want me to spell out the sentencing guidelines for you?" Susan's mouth snapped shut. Her thumb hovered over her phone screen, trembling. I walked past them. I didn't look at Anthony. I didn't look at the kitchenware I'd cried over burnt toast. I walked out the front door into the blinding afternoon sun. The air tasted different out here. Tasted like oxygen. The drive to my father's house felt like a first real breath I'd taken in a year. The silence wasn't empty. It was safe. Noah babbled in the back seat, pointing at the passing trees, oblivious of the fact that his mother had just burned down her life to save his. When Will pulled into Dad's driveway, he expected relief. Instead, my brain switched into overdrive. The adrenaline crush was brutal, leaving me shaky and nauseous. "We need to check everything," I say, dumping the duffel bag on Dad's kitchen table. My father was already on phone with his lawyer, but he nodded at me. "Check what?" "The money, the documents, everything." I spread thepapors out. I'd managed to grab the file folder from Anani's home office while Dad was blocking the stairs. My hands trembled as I opened it. Bank statements, loan agreements, title documents. Took 10 minutes to realize the extent of the damage. Dad hung up. Phone and walked over. "What did Yo find?" I stared at the paper in my hand, the numbers blurring. "My car," he whispered. "The SUV you bought me when Noah was born. Yeah, it's gone. Antona sold it 3 weeks ago to a dealership in the next county. The bill of sale was right there. Dated the day after he took me keys. It's $12. Oh. My father's face went stoic. A mask off controlled. Rage. He sold a gift given Tohei's wife. He didn't just sell it. Dad, look at this. I pushed a bank transfer pipe toward him. He used the money to pay off a credit card, but the card isn't in his name. It's in Susan's. Dad picked up the paper. Susan's gambling debt or a failed business venture? Does it matter? They stole my car to pay herbals. But that wasn't the worst of it. I dug deeper into the file, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against. Mirebs, there was a loan document from a private lender. $40,000. The borrower listed was Olivia Miller. I didn't sign this, I said, my voice arising in panic. Dad, look at those signatures. Looks like Anthony trying to write like you. Dad finished. I felt the room spin. He took out a $40,000 loan in my name and the educational trust fund. The $56,000 my grandmother left me. Logadento, the banking app on my phone, my fingers slipping on the screen. Incorrect password. I tried again, locked out. I called the automotive number, punching in my social security number. It's the balance of your account ending in $44.92 is $0. I dropped the phone. They had taken everything. The cur, the trust fund, my credit. It wasn't control anymore. It was a deliberate attempt to bankrupt me, trap me with no way out. My father studied the documents, the forged loan, the car sale, the transfers. Heist's expression hardened. This isn't a marriage issue, he said. This is felony fraud. When Anthony and Susan showed up, shouting and threatening custody, I opened the door calmly and handed him the envelope. Inside was the proof. Loan documents, bank. Records the forged signature. His confidence collapsed. Ash read, you stole $56,000. I said, that's not a marriage. That's a crime. I gave them a choice. Return the money by morning or the file goes to the district attorney. They left in panic, exposed and powerless. 3 months later, I locked the door of my own apartment. Small, quiet, chosen by me. My bank balance was modest, but it was mine. Anthony was facing charges. I was building my life. I wasn't grateful for the cage anymore.